Hi guys, welcome back. We are continuing on with our series on digestion. And today I'm going to talk with you about the stomach. So there are a lot of things to unpack in the stomach. So I'm not going to cover every single detail. We're hoping to have further modules and things like that for you guys to be able to partake in. But I'm going to give you some of the nitty gritty of the stomach and some of the things you need to understand about what your stomach does and its role in the digestive process and how, we might see some dysfunctions come from that. So give me a moment here. I'm going to do some screen sharing. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, just wanted to make that a little bit bigger. Okay, so let's start talking about the stomach and its role in this digestive process. So we last left off with the esophagus, right? So we chew food, it goes down through the esophagus, and then it hits into the stomach. So here we are. Here's the esophagus right here. And then it's going to branch into the stomach. And there's different sections of the stomach. There's actually like 3 different sections of the stomach here where we can see the cells start to change and have a different pattern. And there's different things that happen in each one of those stages. And I'm not going to go into all of that detail for you guys, but what I do want to help you guys understand is that there's really 2 main sphincters that happen there. And what a sphincter is that it's a muscle or a tight muscle that allows for things to open and close. So it's kind of like this. So if you're looking at that tube or hole, it's like open and close and open and close, right? And there's some nerve stimulation that happens to allow for that. And there's also some physiological things that'll happen in order to allow for that. So here's what happens. The contents of the mouth come down through the esophagus and then they go into the stomach. Now, in order to enter the stomach, that tight junction there between the esophagus and that has to open up to allow it to come in. So it's like it's coming down like this, right? And it's going to go into the stomach, but there's this space right here in between. And that sphincter is going to have to open to allow that to come through, and then it will close right back up. This is super, super, super important for those of you who are interested in reflux and some of the things behind reflux. Well, one of the things that happens with reflux is the stomach acids come back up into the esophagus, right? Yeah. For those of you who've had it, like, yeah, that stinks, right? We've all felt that. And so what happens there is that this junction here isn't closed. It was open. So it's going to allow it to come back in. So the whole role of this is supposed to be, okay, food comes down, puts some pressure on, this guy opens up, then it comes through, then it closes again. And in some cases that doesn't happen. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So there's a sphincter that allows for food to come in, and then there's one that actually allows for it to come out. So you can see that one's going to be up top here. And then there's one that allows it to leave. And that one, that lower esophageal sphincter, I'm sorry, not lower esophageal sphincter, that lower sphincter right here is going to allow that to go into the intestines. So we're going to have a lower portion here. Oh, where'd my mouse go? Lower portion right here that's going to allow it to go into the small intestine, and then we'll be able to do some absorptive processing going on in the small intestine. Okay, so the thing that we need to understand though about the stomach, and this is, I want to be very, very, very clear with this. The stomach is supposed to be acidic. It really is supposed to be acidic. If the stomach isn't acidic enough, you cannot break down your foods. So remember how we talked about we have the foods that we, chew up top, and that's going to break them down. So really what that's doing is it's shredding, and it's kind of ripping apart those different foods, right? So that's why we have different types of teeth, right? Because some are going to shred and some are going to chomp it and whatever. And then it's going to go down through the esophagus, and it's going to now enter into the stomach. In order for the stomach to really do its job, we have to have a very acidic environment. I want you guys to think about, like if we put a drop of acid on something that starts to kind of disintegrate. What the whole process is here is we're going to take this solid-ish type of food, we're going to make it into a really liquid type form, okay? So we're going to take what's called the bolus, which is that chewed up food that's covered in saliva that's gone down, and we're going to make it into chyme, which is essentially like a liquid or liquefied form of food. So that is the main role of this, is to break down that. Now, in order for that to happen, it has to be acidic. But what it also allows for is some absorptive processes will start to happen right here and now. So what we'll start to see here is that it plays a huge role in protein digestion and it begins the start of fat digestion. So if you're somebody who's like, if feeling like, proteins are kind of hard for you to digest and enjoy and things like that, it may be an indication that we're having some stomach issues, right? That's not necessarily saying that that is, but it may be, right? So there's something we want to take a look at. With this happening here, what I want to really, really, really drive home is that if we don't have that proper acid balance, we're going to start to have issues with absorption of certain things like B12, calcium, and iron. So those guys actually depend on the acidity of the stomach in order to break down and allow for absorption. So this thing called intrinsic factor inside of the stomach here, and what happens is without that, we cannot absorb B12. So for those of you who've heard of people who go and get like B12 injections, it's because they can no longer absorb it from their stomach. So the question then goes into the aspect of, well, when we're working with somebody who has, stomach issues, maybe like reflux and things like that, is it that they're producing too much acid, or is it possibly that this sphincter up here isn't working appropriately? There's different causes, there's different cases, there's different scenarios that can happen in that. So of course I can't diagnose you right now, without like having an understanding of what's going on. But I think it's really important for you guys to take that educated look at it and say, okay, wait a second. Is it because I have too much acid or too little acid, possibly? Because in these cases like this sphincter here, this lower esophageal sphincter right here, actually is told to close tighter in part by how much acid is in the stomach. So if we have enough acid in the stomach, if the acid kind of touches right here, it'll go whoop and it'll close up. And if it doesn't, it'll kind of hang open. So that right there could be a cause of some of your issues. So what are some, natural ways that we could potentially look at this? Well, we might want to do an apple cider vinegar kind of challenge test, right? So apple cider vinegar is going to be have more acidity to it. So in those cases, we're having a patient who's having some reflux issues. It might be a good idea for them to try taking little shots of apple cider vinegar for a couple of days and seeing whether or not it changes their symptomatology. If it does, then maybe we're on the right track. If it doesn't, then maybe we do have some other kind of issues. And I don't want to discredit it, guys. This is not meant to, diagnose you, more just to open your mind to how this process works, right? So one of the things that I think is really important to understand is that some people actually have a physical issue here where their stomach is actually kind of pushed up into their diaphragm, kind of caught in their diaphragm area, and it goes and kind of it's essentially what happens is it goes up into the diaphragm and it gets kind of stuck there. This is called a hiatal hernia. And some of you who have it might go, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because now the stomach is pushed up there. So it just does not, that whole sphincter thing does not work as well. But our concern is, right, when we talked about the last time, left untreated, if the stomach contents keep coming up into here, then it can change the cell-like material in the esophagus, and we can create some pretty decent issues here, right? We could end up with something like Barrett's esophagus or esophageal cancer, or, honestly, just a lot of discomfort and pain. So extremely important. The stomach plays a huge role. That was kind of like a nitty-gritty understanding of it. It is by no means giving you all of the details. I would love to do that, but I also don't want to bore you, because I know some of you are just kind of trying to understand a little bit of what is the function, why is it here? So I want to open your mind to, what that process is, and pay attention, because we're going to have some information on, gut healthy foods and things like that coming up. So digestive healthy things that you can use to help increase the natural process of this organ. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and just type them down below. And I hope that this was helpful for you guys, and stay tuned for the next section, which will be looking at the small intestine.